Sure that when you all come for a meeting with somebody from far away, that you can actually see him and you're not plunged into darkness the whole time. I think that what I've been hearing about the electricity problems, not just in Kohima but across Nagaland, in fact, people tell me Kohima is better than most other places in Nagaland, shows that some of the basic challenges of development have not been met by our current government and Chief Minister, nor by the government in Delhi, which is allied with them. So it seems to me that we should start actually by talking about development. After all, what are the basic things that any government should be taking care of to look after all of you? Giving you electricity so you can study, so that you can work, so that you can enjoy meaningful activity, you can see a movie, you can read a book. Electricity is no longer something which one treats as a luxury, as one used to maybe 20, 30 years ago in this part of the country and in other rural areas in our country. Today, it's a basic necessity. And the fact that the government has not been able to deliver it is a standing rebuke. The government has failed in such a basic requirement. Similarly, when it comes to roads, we have some wonderful big highways connecting big cities. You can drive from Dimapur or Kohima to Guwahati. But can you drive from here to a nearby village without problems? Can you actually get through the different parts of Nagaland on serviceable, undamaged roads? And you know the answer. Everyone has been telling me that if you just go away from the highways, you will see the reality of the roads in Nagaland. That needs to be fixed. Water, I'm told, should not be a problem in a place like this. It is probably not a problem if you're staying in a good hotel in Kohima or Dimapur. But again, when you get into the rural areas, some of the real challenges, I'm told that increasingly, those who can afford it are digging tube wells, but ordinary people are struggling even for adequate drinking water. Such basic essentials are the core needs of any human being, of any families, anywhere. And this is an area in which, sadly, the government has proved shamefully deficient. I also want to point out that increasingly you cannot talk about development without talking about education and health. And if you were to combine education and health, the first thing every state should have, ideally every district in the country should have, is a medical college. Nagaland, sadly, does not have it. What you have is lots of promises. Promises of medical colleges all the time, but sadly, no one has seen a medical college coming up here. And I'm very glad that the Congress Party in its manifesto, which I have in front of me, has pledged as a commitment that there will be a number of improvements and changes in the education sector, that they will build a medical college within 1 year of the election. They will build a nursing college as well. We have a lot of talented people who may not have the chance to study all the way to becoming doctors, but are interested enough to help humanity and are willing to be nurses. Well, why don't we have a nursing college? I come from a state, Kerala, which produces more nurses than any other state in the country. And I want to tell you, this is something truly worth doing. We're also talking about increasing the intake of the agriculture university and adding to it veterinary health. Where you have animals, you need to be able to look after them. You need to train people to be able to do that. And these vets can be produced only in a good institution. Let's do that in Nagaland. And of course, it becomes extremely important that this combination of health and education is given the priority that it deserves, and that frankly, people should reproach both the central government and the state government for not doing. It took the COVID pandemic for the central government to wake up to the woeful underfunding of health across India. When will the state government wake up to how little they have done to look after your health here in Nagaland? I do want to say as well that there are other kinds of education that Nagaland deserves to have. One more promise that was made to you by the government, by the central government in fact, was to set up an ISA, an Indian Institute for Science, Education and Research. Where has that promise gone to? It's evaporated into thin air. There is no sign of an ISA coming up. There's neither construction, nor the appointment of a faculty, nor the appointment of people. Why can't the government match its words with action? In fact, even on the issue of the High Court, where a public decision was announced with much fanfare that instead of all 7 northeastern states having to go to Guwahati to go to the High Court, that there would be a High Court in every state. Where is your High Court? Even the money allotted to build a High Court building has again vanished into thin air. The level of corruption that this state has had to endure under the present leadership is truly appalling. And I think it's time that the enlightened citizens of Nagaland stood up and asked questions. Where is this money gone? This is money meant for the people of Nagaland, not to feather the nests of certain fat cats. We really have to ensure that it's extremely important that whenever a government makes a promise to you, you should hold them accountable to the promise. You should ask them very simply this: we're not asking for anything new. You promised ABC. Where is ABC? Get them to tell you before they ask you for your vote once again. I'm very anxious to see an end to this Naga insurgency we've been talking about. It's a strange history because, as you know, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, way back in 1959, announced the decision to create a state in Nagaland. And it became reality on the 1st of December 1963 with one additional measure, a constitutional amendment that created Article 371A to guarantee certain autonomy and certain rights that protected and safeguarded the interests of the Naga people, not just as tribals generally, but as Nagas specifically, by name. This was the first such special provision after Article 370 on Kashmir, which has now been abolished by the BJP government. The question that comes up is, will they start talking about abolishing 371 as well? My concern with this government has always been that they have a very narrow and monolithic idea of India. It was very interesting. I saw a statement by a minister who's campaigning in Nagaland this week, a minister from Delhi, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, saying the BJP's ideology is the Constitution of India. I said, oh, really? But the BJP's constitution says its ideology is Hindutva, which is nowhere mentioned in the Constitution of India. So what do they want? They want to come and say one thing to the people of Nagaland and one thing to the rest of India? Is that the kind of politics of fooling the people that the BJP intends to practice here? I want to ask you very bluntly, don't be taken in by this kind of rhetoric. The problem with the BJP is not only that they have officially declared an ideology of Hindutva, which privileges the people of one religious identity, one community identity over everyone else, but on top of that, they belong to the so-called Sangh Parivar, the family of organizations led by the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and the RSS has declared its intention of converting India from its present constitution into a Hindu Rashtra. Will the minister who is coming and trying to pull the wool over your eyes, will he be able to explain how they're going to achieve Hindu Rashtra in Nagaland with 97% non-Hindus? I mean, you have to ask them point blank some of these questions. They've got away with fooling you for too long. And I have to say to you, you all know the famous line of Abraham Lincoln's, you can fool all the people some of the time. You can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Let not the conceal its basic orientation, which they have said throughout their time in India since they came to power in 2014, that they believe in one nation, one religion, one language, which is Hindi, one leader, which is you know who, and one culture. Now, when we talk about the Constitution of India, we celebrate a constitution that respects our diversity. We celebrate a constitution that says at the very beginning that every citizen of India is equal, whatever your religion, whatever your caste, whatever language you speak, wherever you are born, it doesn't matter. If you're a citizen of India, you have the same rights as Mr. Amit Shah or Mr. Modi or Mr. Chandrasekhar. There's no difference. And therefore, they have no right to preach one thing in Delhi and in the Hindi-speaking states and come here and try and sell you a yarn when they come to Nagaland. That is not acceptable. You must turn back to them and say, are you disavowing what you have stood for throughout your 9 years in power in Delhi? We can't allow this kind of rhetoric to fool the people of Nagaland. And that's very important for all of you to understand. I also want to stress that as far as the conduct of the BJP is concerned, so far we've been talking theory, constitution, ideology, idea of India, and so on. But if you look at the actual content of their behavior, what do we see? We have been seeing a shameful series of attacks on minorities. As recently as Christmas, we've had churches being attacked in Chhattisgarh, in Jharkhand, in Madhya Pradesh. And always the attackers are from Hindutva organizations and ideologies. If that's the true face of these people, because no one has condemned them, the BJP government and Prime Minister have remained silent on this kind of behavior. If that's their true face, how can they come to Nagaland and pretend to be something that they're not? I just want to say to you, please understand the reality. Perhaps it takes sometimes some truth telling to understand that you cannot, in today's day and age, expect to fool the people by saying one thing here and behaving totally differently everywhere else in the country. But that is what the BJP is doing, and doing systematically and doing often.